Hi everybody, we are going to go over the answers to your chapter 7 and 8 questions. So you need to have your reading binder and a colored pencil handy. So we'll start with the vocabulary, but you do have a vocabulary activity on Spelling City today that you also need to do. So we're going to do this, and then you're also going to do Spelling City. But I'll just real quickly go through these definitions to make sure you've gotten them written down correctly. Foul is disgustingly dirty or repulsive. Imitating means to copy someone's actions or appearance. Crayfish is a small freshwater lobster-like crustacean. Crustacean being the type of animals that are like shrimp and lobster and crayfish. Squelched means crushed or struck down. Phenomenon is a rare occurrence. Obvious means something that is easily seen or understood. Okay, so foul, it's describing a noun, how a smell or what something looks like. So that would make it an adjective. Imitating would be a verb. Crayfish is a noun. Squelched would be a past tense verb. Phenomenon would be an abstract noun. And obvious would be an adjective. All right. Next, going back over the synonyms and antonyms. Antonyms meaning opposite, synonym meaning the same. So, hesitated. If I hesitate to do something, I might pause before I do it. If I'm imitating someone, I am copying them. If I am inquiring about something, I am asking about it. And if something is very obvious to me, that means it's very clear and I understand it. Okay? And any mistakes you made, just correct them with a colored pencil. Now, this is where you need to make sure you've got the important details. Okay? Now, I did my answers in wrap, and if you were turning this in to me, yours would be in wrap too. Number 1, Liza K. scattered leaves on top of the algae because if he, I shouldn't have put a pronoun there. I should have put Dajan because I'm trying to do the answer without rereading the question. Liza K. scattered the leaves on top of the algae because if Dajan was in the borrow pit, he would make tracks through the leaves. So I restated enough of the question that the answer can stand by itself without having to rewrite the whole question. Number 2, what did Liza K. figure out about the armadillos? Again, restating by just using a few of the words. Liza K. figured out the armadillos, which I shouldn't have a space there, figured out the armadillos were used to dry areas and were choosing to feed in the pine lands because that was their niche. Now notice I didn't say what Liza K. figured out was. What should only be at the beginning of a statement, not at the beginning, other way around. What should only be at the beginning of a question, not at the beginning of a statement. A lot of you yesterday in the question of the day about your Easter, you started with what I did for Easter was, and the correct way to restate that would just be to say, for Easter, I, ... So for here, Liza K. figured out, ... about the armadillos. The pine lands was their niche. The hammock was too high. So that's the important stuff you need to know. Number 3, I infer that Liza K. went back to the tent to get her fishing pole because she wanted Travis to think she had just come to Gumbo Limbo Hole to fish. She did not want him to think that she lived there. or that she knew where Dajan was either. And number 4, since masses of hydrilla were not growing in Gumbo Limbo Hole and the algae hadn't spread, Liza K inferred that Dajan was still there. Okay, again, when you're restating, you pick the most important parts of that sentence so that you can have your answer stand alone without having to repeat this whole sentence. Number 5, what evidence did Liza K find to support her inference? That's the inference that Dajan was still there, the one that we just talked about. The evidence that supports Liza K's inference is a mound of bladderwort, which is a water plant, was piled up by the alligator flags, which meant Dajan had moved them out of the way. Number 6, Liza K heard a voice saying, "Mother, are you all right?" Who was speaking? It was a gray parrot with red tail feathers that was speaking. And who did Liza K say solved the mystery of where Dajan was? Liza K said Sherlock Holmes, which was her name for the parrot, solved the mystery. And I think most of you know that Sherlock Holmes was a famous detective in England a while back. And so that's why she named him that, because he was like a detective. Discussion questions. Number 1, Liza K says, if I had learned nothing else from nature, I had learned that once the butterfly steps into the light, it can't go back into the cocoon. Does this sentence have a literal or non-literal meaning? What does Liza K mean? Well, it's non-literal because and I did not do this completely as rap because there just wasn't space to repeat all that. But it's non-literal because she isn't talking about butterflies. She just means we can't go back and undo things that are already done. And James patted Liza K's head and she resented it. Make an inference about how Liza K felt about James. Why did she resent it? Why do you think he did it? First, is the inference is that Liza K feels like she's friends with James, and but she resents him patting her on the head like she's a small child. He probably just meant it to be nice and show he cared. Or maybe he meant that she was saying things that didn't make sense, but he wasn't going to tell her that because he didn't want to hurt her feelings, and that's why he patted her on the head. Could be either way. What did Liza K finally realize about Dajan's whereabouts? Liza K finally realized that Dajan had never left Gumbo Limbo Hole. He was just coming up at night. The clear and healthy water proved that he was still there. And then what do you think Liza K figured out from what the parrot said? Well, I had already just said it, and so I just did an arrow that he was nocturnal. And we talked about that a lot, okay? All right, so that's chapter 7. If you had to make a lot of corrections, wiggle out your hands. Take a look at the chapter 8 vocabulary. Make sure you've got all that. Again, you'll be needing to do the Spelling City activities about the vocabulary today. All right. You just pause the video if you need more time. I'm going to go ahead and move it though. Okay, you went over the figurative language with Miss Brown, so we don't really need to go over that. Short answers. What was the big news Liza K's mom had for her? Mom's big news was that she got the manager job and would be managing 2 diners so they could buy a house. Liza K's mom said, in a way, Dajan was responsible for her big news. Where had he been? Dajan had been hiding deep in the pit under the water of Gumbo Limbo Hole during the day and coming out at night. What did Liza K mean when she said Dajan had reversed normal alligator behavior to keep from being killed? Well, alligators typically are not nocturnal. They normally come out and feed and hang out of the water during the day and sleep at night. Liza Kay said, if I am lucky, I find butterfly eggs and watch from Act 1 to Act 4. And Kennedy's been getting to do this, and she is posting it on our Seesaw blog. The 4 acts are egg, caterpillar, chrysalis, and butterfly. She meant that she watched the egg hatch, the caterpillars grow, then the caterpillar turn into a chrysalis, and last emerge as a butterfly. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was so far down. I apologize. If you need to copy any of that, just pause your video and then restart it when you're ready. Okay, number 6. Why was Liza Kay's mom upset and thought they ought to spend that night in a hotel? Well, she got kind of freaked out when there was a phone call for Liza Kay at the diner. She thought it was a social worker looking for them, and that somehow that might cause her to lose her job or otherwise get in trouble. But who did Liza Kay think had made that phone call? Explain her reasoning. Now, I can bet you that if that was on a test, a lot of you would skip that explain her reasoning part. Who did she think had made that phone call? She thought Miss Dade had made the phone call. But what was the reasoning? The reasoning was that no one else would think the diner was her address. And she had given her address to Miss Dade at the governmental center as the diner's address. What was about to happen to Priscilla? A social worker found Priscilla and was planning to take her to a shelter. All right, now I did not write answers for these 2 discussion questions because it's hard for me to do that without giving things away. So what I want you to do is I want you to add response, tell me your answers for these discussion questions. What do you predict will happen to all the Woods people? And let's review who the Woods people are. We have Liza Kay and Mom. This is hard to write on. Let me move it over here. Liza Kay and Mom. And the same thing will probably not happen to all of them. They will all have different things happen to them. Priscilla, and the last one is Caruso. Okay, what do you think will happen to them? And what will happen to Dajan? Will Travis give up? Now, I want you to explain your reasoning there. Okay? So, hopefully you made corrections with colored pencil. And now you're going to click Add Response. And either with a video or a note, you're going to answer these 2 questions for me. And then also you have Spelling City assignments for today. And then there is a quiz tomorrow on chapter 7 and 8. The information in the chapter, some of it may come from these questions. Some of it may come from other parts we didn't discuss, but also the vocabulary will be on there also. So be prepared for that quiz tomorrow. And have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions.